Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show.
Welcome, ladies and gents. Jon and I are just going to give you a quick episode. Just bands we'd like to see music biopics of. And I will let you start.
Well, for me, the first band that comes to mind, I've always said is Aerosmith. I'd be curious to see a biopic of.
Very good pick. I think, if anything, they at least owe more documentary times and such, and it's like they just been ignoring it.
Plus, it'll be interesting with all the books that have come out from all the members. You can combine those together and can make an interesting film.
Totally. I mean, you could definitely have him. Just all the weird stuff he's handled and done, and just show how he just got his voice. He didn't have to rely on looks or anything. Just had to, jam. Kind of
No,
buildable.
just cast the right people for that. And like I said, there's some interesting stories because I have some of the books from some of the members like Joe Perry and Brad Whitford, and not Brad Whitford, Joey Kramer, my bad. And it's some interesting stuff that I think could translate well if done right.
Totally. Good pick. So I had Otis Redding. I think you guys will know him from everything, Try Little Tenderness, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, and it's like,
Yep.
well, yeah, he would be interesting just for being another just soul singer, from late 50s and before the 70s, and it's like, okay, yeah, that could totally work, because they call him the King of Soul for, a reason. He just had that influence and passion, and it displayed, so. What do you think about Body Count? Rap metal band. Ice-T could even just do a documentary on him.
That could be interesting, especially since it took me so long to finally listen to them, because I never knew they existed until literally about a year and a half ago.
Right. And they weren't mainstream because
No.
and very experimental and
Oh, definitely.
often featured in any movie he works on. So yeah. I also thought about the Motown quartet group, the Four Tops. It's another
Yeah.
big doo-wop.
Although it's interesting with them because I believe it's one of those singers that actually was in Little Shop of Horrors as the voice of Laundry 2. If I'm
I
not
think so.
mistaken.
I think so.
Which I don't complain because I love that movie. It's still my favorite musical, but that's another story. Um,
Yeah, and they had a lot of earworms as well. It's like Shake Me, Wake Me. It's the same old song. It's like, yeah, you could totally do something fun with them. Then I thought about,
I could probably say I was thinking of, speaking of solo artists, I could say Chris Cornell would be interesting.
oh yeah,
Somebody taking on him.
yeah, or something. Just have some kind of group who basically, I mean, if anything, you could just, how to describe it? You could basically just showcase how, yeah, he just knew when he was done with the world and he had to exit stage right. But if you didn't want to give to Grimm, you could still just cover how what was just kind of going in his head when he's just coming up with these just very just atypical kind of lyrics.
Very dark lyrics and
Feel the rhythm with your hand. Balancing out Soundgarden and Audio Slave back to back, in addition to his solo careers. Like, yeah, that was insane.
another band I'll mention, because I know my brother's a big fan of them, and I know they tried to do a movie on them, like a TV movie a few years ago, and that's In Excess. I'd be curious.
In Excess.
Anybody? They have a
Oh
bunch
yeah,
of
INXS. Yeah.
yeah,
Wants
and
to be the next INXS star. I'm just kidding. No one remembers that reality show.
I saw that a few years ago.
Oh man, it'd be catchy. It'd be probably
Maybe,
short.
but I know the perfect guy that can play him, because there's a artist I discovered when his band was on SNL a few years ago, called 1975, and the lead singer looks exactly like the singer from NXS. I'm like, well, there's your guy. If you ever do a biopic of him, there's your guy. Even almost sounds
Right.
like him sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But would they do that? I'm not sure.
It would be tricky because, yeah, you'd have to get the exact, obviously you're just going to lip sync, but then you just got to figure out what part of their background is interesting, works as a movie, and which of it is just boring. And, you cut that out and move on.
And be respectful. Not be too obvious. Just playing off the drugs, which I'm sure some people would, but that wouldn't always be interesting as a film, or even as a documentary.
Totally. Very good pick, I think. Like you say, I mean, it would just jam. It'd just be the icing on the cake since a lot of these bands are very beloved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in excess, weren't they British?
Australian.
Australian, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the few Australian bands people know.
You could probably do Duran Duran. There's another
I think
British band.
so.
Show how they're changing the atypical kind of 80s pop scene. They're kind of considered rock too, so yeah, just be an interesting, just kind of multi-genre crossing. I thought of House of Pain. That just kind of just showed you could do,
Oh yeah.
white gangster rap, and it just maybe C+C Music Factory. You just could just show how all these guys, were around for years, and they just had one big, single, and they did a few other, songs that were just played at, clubs, but as well as solo careers. But I mean, it'd be interesting, I'm sure, just something you could dig up there and just see how to format it.
Yeah.
That's all I've thought of garbage. I thought, okay, yeah, you could have Shirley Manson. You could show how that all evolved to something bigger, and just their albums just, after a while didn't really register with people, but they still
Yeah.
had plenty of other hits.
You could also do Smashing Pumpkins. I'd be curious.
I would totally pay to see this. Totally pay to see that.
No.
Yeah.
Especially with all the drama there, from what I've heard, between certain band members. If they're willing to play off that nowadays.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, there's a big thing with the Billy Corgan, the bassist, the former bassist, I should say. She's not there anymore. And you get the whole debacle there. But it's they could make that entire movie, honestly.
Jeez.
But trying to think. I know some people I've talked to would love to see like an Ozzy movie. I don't know if that would work, honestly. Especially maybe earlier Ozzy, not nowadays.
Yeah, definitely do it before. I mean, just have the reality stuff in the background. Get it approved by his
Yeah.
family, obviously, but also just show how you could definitely show how someone like him or Alice Cooper, which is becoming a bigger name.
Yeah, I could definitely see him working there. I don't know he would even be involved with that, since he was in a movie once. Twice, I mean. My bad. I forgot Prince of Darkness, but I tried to forget that movie, but won't go there.
Yeah, they were in Trick or Treat together, but yeah, I mean,
That's true.
You could show how they kind of just made themselves relevant in every kind of pop culture, and just did all those wacky, movie and talk show appearances, and just jammed. Just
You could show
70s.
like the music videos they filmed, I'd say. That would be
You could
curious.
Yeah, I definitely would want to know, just get people to study with the executives saying, how did you film this, so we can create that look.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, getting the looks not hard, but what actually happened on the set of this music video? We want to tell that side of the story.
Yeah.
Last one up, I will talk about. We could probably, I already mentioned NIN. So, yeah, I mean, all these bands could definitely. I mean, I don't know what kind of producer would do it. I would hate for them to just be imitating just the style of just all the other biopics. It's like, no, just be you, just be your own special thing. I mean, there was a music bio they did for Netflix. I forgot what band it was even about, and it was getting mixed reviews, but a lot of people said, hey, it wasn't trying to be like any of the other ones, even though it was dirt cheap, obviously, but told the story, and I recall it being watchable, not great. I was like, okay, that's fine. It doesn't have to be Bohemian Rhapsody. It doesn't have to be The Doors. It doesn't have to be
No.
Purple Rain of all things. It was like, it can be its own special oyster.
And that's all it can be. And another one I'll mention real quick, that's, since I do find them to be a bit underrated, I'd be curious to see people try to take on this band, this Cheap Trick.
Big in Japan.
Oh yeah, big in Japan.
Still are.
Still are, that's true. I mean, that's how they became famous, because of that.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see how somebody would try to portray them, or at least maybe doing like a documentary on them or something.
Yeah. Just something, just a little more oomph as opposed to the billionth, David Bowie.
Yeah.
I like them as much, but
Oh yeah.
just,
Sometimes when you overdo it, it gets very dull. It's just the same documentaries over and over again.
that or just reusing other footage and already done facts. So yeah, it's
But
yeah. But thank you for being on here. This is a short, sweet, quick episode. So
yeah, welcome.
shortest.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time.
Ah,
Tangents galore.
yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We may talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Ah, yes.
I am the master storyteller
Yes.
of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers,
Yes.
the Google Play,
Yes.
Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ.
Ah,
We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say
ah, ah,
all
yeah.
that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Yeah. No, don't run the listeners away, PJ.
Ah, I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we're going to end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you
you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history all popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be a
did you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With the one last plot holes of gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Welcome to Who Was She podcast. I am your host, Tara Jabari. After a decade working in documentaries, marketing, and all things digital media, I found that podcasting is a strong medium to share stories. After years of producing for others, I decided to start my own biographical podcast. Who Was She will focus on the life of a woman throughout Baha'i history. The first season is about Lydia Zemenov. Lydia's story explores the subjects of the power of language and faith. Her father invented the universal language Esperanto, and she came from a Jewish family and became a Baha'i. She grew up during World War I and was killed during World War II in a concentration camp, despite heroic efforts to save her life. How can one person's life intersect with so many others, connect across borders, and inspire a biography which inspired this podcast? Over the next few weeks, I will share her story with you and the lives that were most affected by her and those who affected her life as well. They include her father, Ludwig Zemenov, her spiritual mother, American journalist Martha Root, and the Baha'i German soldier Fritz Mako, who worked for the resistance undercover while having to serve the Nazi Party. I want to thank the author Wendy Heller and George Ronald Publishing for their blessing to let me use Heller's biography, Lydia, The Life of Lydia Zemenov, Daughter of Esperanto, as a main and instrumental resource for this podcast. So please subscribe and learn about this amazing woman who traveled through 3 continents in an effort to bring unity through the power of language. You can also find more information on our Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Who Was She podcast. Music was composed and performed by Sam Red. I am your host, Tara Jabari. Join us next time as we begin our journey about Lydia Zemenov.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything: pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
Are you sick of the same old stale podcasts? Well, then join Vanessa and Darren as they dissect movies of all kinds. The 2 lifelong cinema lovers bring their favorites, curiosities, and first-time watches to the operating table and inject them with a healthy dose of snark. Then there's the waiting room, where they examine books and short stories. So just look for them on Apple Podcasts and where fine podcasts are available. They're part of the Legion Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at VD Clinic Pod. Join them on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/VD Clinic Pod. Or email them at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. They're ready to cure what ails you. And still, they just might be a little contagious.
Hi there. It's Heather from the Watching Netflix Without You podcast. Did you know that there are over 1,200 Netflix original feature films and documentaries? And that number is only growing. So I've made it my mission to watch as many as I possibly can. Then, with a delightful guest or guests, disclaimer, more often than not my brother Ryan, we spend an episode rating, reviewing, and discussing a film at length. The first half of every episode is spoiler-free for those who haven't seen it yet, and in the second half, after a very clear spoiler warning, we dive into it. And that's really about it. You can listen to Watching Netflix Without You on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show.